Okay.
So yeah, man,
So, all right.
this is
Episode 21.
episode 21,
Yeah.
right? UBI.
Have, have you? Yeah. Oh man, I gotta see if I can remember how to do this.
Yeah, you haven't been here in a minute.
In a minute. It's been too long. I've been busy with the trial coming up and all that stuff.
Yeah,
But you still got to make time to do stuff like this, or else you'll go crazy. So,
exactly. So how is that coming? Like the whole preparation?
it's different. I mean, I've never been a trial before. It's where it's luckily we have a huge team. There's like 10 attorneys on it. So it's
Are you
probably
gonna
five.
get to do your highness?
Nah.
Your honor.
It's one of those big cases. So I'm pretty junior, so I'm just an associate, But I mean, like I'm helping, I guess, the
Mhm.
partners prepare, but they're going to be the ones arguing all that stuff.
I mean, I know you probably, you won't be able to say anything about the case, but whatnot. But is it one of those kind of cases that is kind of like will be big in the news? Will it be one of those types of cases, or not necessarily? Like it
Not
could be,
necessarily.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Because
not
sometimes
necessarily.
you could have big cases, but not necessarily it wouldn't necessarily be in the news, and
Yeah,
then you will have big cases that will be in the news.
yeah. It's one of those cases that I think will be interesting legally. So I think it will definitely be like, the opinion will be all up on, Westlaw and all that stuff. And I mean,
Right.
they've already made opinions in the case, and they're up on Westlaw. And,
So are
um,
they going to be? So you think some of the opinions are going to be decisions of first instances, like or some sort of novel type decision, or not necessarily?
um, It's possible. There's a lot of different issues in the case. It's just fascinating. I'm not entirely sure because I don't know, I don't know all of the law and like what's completely novel, but it's possible given the fact pattern and like the complexity. It's just one of those complex businessy cases, but it's pretty interesting. And once it's out,
Mm.
we can talk about it more. But yeah, what it means for me now is just I'm just working a lot, and it's harder to work during the pandemic. I feel like I don't know if you feel like this, but I feel like working if I work like let's just say I work 40 hours a week, which it's been more than that, but let's say I work 40 hours a week outside of the pandemic. 40 hours during the pandemic feels like more for some reason,
Yeah,
like to me.
yeah,
And
I agree. I think it's partly because we've talked about this quite a bit. Like there's just nothing else you can do. Like
yeah,
and it feels like the work has piled on and on and on.
yeah,
And yeah, so it's like sometimes I don't know. I mean, if you feel this way sometimes where you could start working in the morning and then before you know it, it's like 3 p.m. And
yeah, yeah. No, I know. Yeah, it's crazy. It's
and
like
I
how did
mean,
you're just sitting
yeah,
there. I try to.
yeah.
Do you break up your day? Are you someone who kind of goes straight through, or do you like work out during the day, or do errands, or and stuff?
Yeah, I do some errands during the day. But yeah, like generally, ideally, I like to start working like super early just because I've just noticed that I'm more productive in the mornings.
Hmm.
And generally, after like one, my brain is kind of like, I always feel like I need a nap. And um, it's probably not the best time for me to do something that is very, like, it's more like mentally that
Hmm.
requires more mental strength, right? Like
Yeah,
maybe just more routine stuff is what I will generally try to push to the afternoon. That I don't have to think too
you
much.
have to think too
But if
much. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, but
No,
if I have to like think and all of that stuff, like I'm gonna make mistakes and things. So I have noticed that about myself, and yeah, so I generally just like to break them up a little bit because I will run errands here and there during the day. The other part is I like to leave my Wednesdays free.
Hmm.
So so basically what I mean by that is free of meetings.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
so like free of work type stuff. So that if I really have to like say I have to meet up with someone or I have to run an errand, go to a doctor's appointment, I just know that I can put it on a Wednesday without having to kind of like think too much. Does that make sense? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, unless it is
Nice.
absolutely necessary, I don't put anything work meeting related on Wednesdays. So I just so yeah, that works for me. And I also if I'm going to take a day off, I prefer to take Wednesdays off as well. Like if I'm just going to take one day off, because it makes the week go a lot faster. Like it just because it's like 2 days you have that day off and you only have 2 days. I know most people like to take like this 3 day weekend thing, but I think mentally people should try taking a Wednesday off and see how that works for them.
Interesting. Because I mean that's a good way to kind of just like break it up. So you're like,
Hmm.
all right, if I can just get through Monday and Tuesday, get a little bit of
Exactly.
a break, and then I get through Thursday and Friday, um, then you make it a little easier to take it in chunks. I can't wait to just have a more normal schedule, but it's like sometimes, and probably I don't know if this is true with your work. Probably it is. Sometimes it's a little unavoidable, just like taking stuff off if you're like busy with a deal or whatever, would
So
be the busy part.
so yeah, I mean, so for me, I was supposed to take this past week off because I'm traveling or I was traveling and I pulled a Ted Cruz, got out of Houston.
Yeah, so you weren't in Houston when it was cold, or it got cold and then you left like 10.
No. So I left on Sunday, and that was before the storm. We knew the storm was coming, right? So, but I mean, the trip was planned um, before
Okay.
before all of this happened. So this was planned. But but we knew the storm was coming. But of course, like there is no way to know. Maybe some people did, but I didn't. I mean, I knew this storm was coming. I knew it was going to be bad, but I didn't think like I didn't know it was going to be that bad as it was, where people were freezing to death, and you have millions of homes that lost
Hmm.
power. And I mean, I expected it to be bad, but you know what I'm saying? Like not in Houston, not in Texas,
Right. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
have that
Yeah.
kind of storm. So so yeah, but I mean Europe.
Yeah,
And
it sounds like you're in Europe right now with all those church bells going on in the background.
exactly, like you have the cathedral, and I mean, if you don't believe in God, they will force you to do that here.
He's gonna come back Catholic.
Exactly,
Um,
you come back Catholic, but to kind of like talk a little bit about like I was supposed to take this past week off. You wouldn't believe that even though I'm traveling overseas during the pandemic, I am still like I still worked some days, a couple of like this past few days, which I think
mhm.
is a little ridiculous, but I'll just leave that as that.
Yeah, no, I hear
So
it's
yeah,
harder
I
to get
mean,
away from work, even though you can travel more, which it's there's good and bad about working remotely. Uh-oh. Sounds like they're moving the cathedral into your place,
yeah.
like
So
inside.
so I am across. I'm literally across a church. Like this is right here, and it is just open. So I mean, the podcast listeners for this week, you're just gonna have to bear with us. It's
They'll be
Saturday
all right.
night. Yeah, it is Saturday night, so I guess there is a service. I don't know if some sort of a mass service, before. Um,
That sounds like
so
a weird time, like 7 at night. I don't know.
yeah,
I'm not sure how that works, but the only church bells I hear here are like at up the top of the hour, like or
yeah.
something. But that's just
So
going on randomly.
yeah, so that is generally how it is as well. But I think because they are having some sort of service right now,
Hmm.
or they are about to, is probably why that is the case here. Like normally, typically, it would just be at the hour. Like
Hmm.
the bells would go off at the top of the hour. But I think they're about to start some sort of Saturday night service, and the bell is basically a call to service. I think.
Got you.
So like basically saying, hey, we're about to start this service, and if you gotta make it quickly or make it in.
Got you. So why Spain? Why'd you pick Spain to
So
travel to?
so it is a long story. It was basically France before. Flew in to France and then drove into Spain.
How long of a drive was that?
It was about 12 hours. And yeah,
Hmm.
it's yeah, it's
Wait, do you have a, how does that work? Are you able to just drive there if you have a license? Did you have to get like an international driver's license or?
yeah. So so first of all, you cannot come to Europe right now unless you are a citizen or a resident.
Wait,
So
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 you're a wait, are you a citizen of Europe?
yes, I am a US. I mean, I am also an EU citizen, so that's why I
Ah,
can come. So that's So better generally, I mean, now is when Americans will understand what it means to have like an African passport, where it is useless. You cannot go anywhere. Because pretty much the only place you can go to as Americans now is Mexico. And I mean, and we saw what happened to Ted Cruz for going to Mexico.
exactly. That's hilarious. Yeah, that is
So,
we
I
uh
mean, if you're an American right now, the only way you as an American citizen will be able to get into Europe is if you are also an
an
EU
EU
citizen.
citizen.
Like
Yeah.
they're not letting you in as as a tourist or anything like that. So UBI.
How would
So
you even get that? Like an EU citizenship? How long does something like that take?
I mean,
Or should I not even
yeah,
worry about it? It ain't gonna happen.
yeah, UBI. Like like the immigrant. It depends. It depends. It can take anywhere from, depending on whatever route. It's almost like the way you get U.S. citizenship as well. Depending on the route you go through, it can take anywhere from like 2 years to maybe 10 years. So
Hmm.
like it's not like there is one way, right?
Yeah.
Like they are just different. There are different routes that you can acquire.
That's so interesting that we can't, as Americans, go anywhere now, and
But
it's just such a weird world to live
it is
in.
a weird world. And the funny thing is, Americans cannot go anywhere, but foreigners can come to America. So,
Oh man.
well, maybe unless that has changed. If that changed, it would have been just after Biden became president.
Hmm.
Because believe it or not, um, the U.S. government wasn't requiring people to test before coming in, which is
Hmm.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I don't know about Mexico if they did that as well, but yeah, like the U.S. government wasn't required. I mean, so with Europe, even if you're a European citizen and you can come here, they will only let you in if you have a negative COVID test.
Right.
You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So it's
Which I
like two
mean,
prongs.
it makes sense. I
It
mean,
makes
why would
sense.
you not do that? I mean, that for the US, yeah, I was traveling right when the coronavirus was starting. We were traveling from Australia back to the US, and they'll ask you some questions like, have you coughed in the last couple of days? And we go, just say no, and then they
I
just
mean,
like,
I
all right,
know,
cool, you
like
good
you're
to
gonna say
go.
yeah, like you're gonna say yeah, like I was coughing all through the place.
Yeah, I was coughing, I had a fever, couldn't smell anything. Like, why would you say that? Just be like, nah, I'm good. They're like, all right, they just take your word for it. And so I was
So
like, this is definitely coming to the
yeah, so I have a friend. He, you may have met him as well. He lives in DC, or maybe I've told you about him when we were in law school.
US. Is he a lawyer?
No, he's not a lawyer.
Oh, I think I know the guy. Like, did you do like
Yeah,
some business with them or something?
yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So he lives in DC, but I think around March or April last year, like it was definitely when the virus had gotten like people had
Hmm.
finally figured out it was serious and all of that stuff. So he, I don't remember if he traveled to Brazil at the time or he was already in Brazil, one of the two.
Hmm.
And he said, of course, he was hearing on the news like, things are crazy and all around the world, blah blah blah. He said he was so shocked when he came back to the US. So he was coming back maybe around April. And it was like nothing was going on at the airport, like you were just saying. The people were just in
Hmm.
line. There was like really no distancing. There was no testing. People were just,
Yeah.
maybe not wearing like. So he said he thought that, oh, this thing is not as serious as people are making.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's wild. Yeah. Like it was around February, like around this time last year, I guess we were coming back from the U.S., coming back from Australia to the U.S. And it was, that was like, there's no way that this thing isn't going to come over here because I'm just seeing all these people coming in from all over the world. And I guess at the time they just, I don't know what they knew, but it was just like, masks were only something that people from Asia were wearing because people in other countries, we were like, you guys need to calm down, not take it so damn seriously. But people from China, they were not playing. That's actually the first
Like
time
UBI.
I realized this thing was kind of weird because when we were traveling to Australia, like early February, we were in LAX, and I remember getting off the plane and seeing people coming from China. Everyone from this plane had a mask on. It was like I felt like seeing hundreds of people. That might be an exaggeration, but it felt like it was like hundreds of people from China all had masks on, and I was just like, "What the hell?" I was like, "Y'all need to calm down. It's not that serious." like y'all tripping, and it's like 2 weeks later, like I'm wearing all this shit.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah. The
they,
funny thing is, I don't know if you remember, like even when we were in China, like people
hmm
would just wear masks sometimes. Like
yeah,
not everyone, but
yeah, they didn't. Apparently, they wear them a lot in Beijing. They didn't wear them as much in Shanghai, but definitely
no, they
more
did
than they
not.
wear them over here.
Yeah.
But you would see people wear masks. I think that were they doing it because of? I heard they were doing it because of the like pollution and smog. Or
Yeah, that's my understanding that because of the air quality and all that stuff. But I've also seen and I don't know if I've seen like Asian tourists before, um, both in the US and also in Europe. Like, they will be like on tours or something
hmm
and they will be wearing masks.
yeah,
Like I'm
it was
talking about
definitely yeah.
pre-pandemic, like,
Right. Yeah.
like
It's definitely
talking
an
about
Asian thing. I feel like we're all culturally appropriating Asians when we're wearing masks. They definitely started it like decades before.
I
It's just a
know.
thing that they did.
Can you imagine if you are, I don't know, maybe if you are from Beijing or something and you were following the whole politicization of mask wearing in the US, you're probably thinking like, what guys?
What is the? I don't understand what the big deal is. Yeah, it's so wild. It's something I've never seen an American do it, but I mean yeah, exactly. Like Asians, like they've just been doing it for decades. Like it's just a thing. Um, yeah, now everyone. I don't know. I mean, the good thing about wearing masks, I mean, other than also, I mean, in addition to not, getting COVID and transmitting COVID, is just like I feel like I haven't gotten sick at all. I don't know about you, but like I've been very healthy during this whole thing because I'm just not mingling with people, so I'm not getting colds and all this other shit too. So I think it's worked. I don't know if that's just a placebo effect, but I feel like I'm just healthier.
Yeah, I mean, Same here for the most part, even though my daughter goes to daycare and all of that stuff. So who knows? Um, but I agree. But I also wonder if that means that, and I don't have any scientific thing to back this up. Like if your body becomes less exposed to
Hmm.
these viruses, what that means for your immunity in the long run. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if if it means that you'll be more susceptible to just like once you get back out there, your body like, wait, what guy? Like what?
Yeah, like it can't handle it.
Yeah, and
I'm lactose intolerant, but they say like still eat some yogurt just so your body
exactly.
doesn't get too jacked up. So it's like kind of like that. Like I haven't had any yogurt this whole time, no milk, nothing, and then all of a sudden they just want me to eat ice
Suddenly,
cream once we get the vaccine. It's gonna be crazy. Yeah, just eat this bowl of ice cream with some whipped cream with a glass of milk. You'll be good. Like nah, so my stomach can't handle it.
exactly.
So
So yeah, I mean, that's just me speculating about. Yeah, like I feel like this whole pandemic, though, the effects, like we do not know the long term effects. Like,
nah.
like just like I remember one of the epiphanies that I had, and I was talking about this a little bit on the last episode that you were in, on that episode that I had
With Io.
with Ayo, yeah. And I want to write more, right? Just write.
Hmm.
And initially I was like, okay, maybe I want to write a book or something. But I'm like, nah, I'm not, I'm not even gonna, because when you say you're gonna write a book, right? That's probably an excuse for you not to write, because you're gonna have to feel like you need all this time to come up with. So I think I'm just gonna blog more and just
Hmm.
about my thoughts as I'm feeling them, even if these are like, I mean, these are going to be just short essays, maybe 500, 600 words, I think, just to write. Because I feel like I've had a lot of epiphanies. Some things I already knew, but they become even clearer. An
Hmm.
example would be the whole thing about choice. There's this book that I read a couple of years ago. I believe the title is The Paradox of Choice. Have
Sounds
you
super familiar. That sounds like it's from Darden almost. Like that sounds like a business school book. Hold on. I feel like what I read a book that oh no, I read a book called Choice Theory, I think. And that was a really good book. I remember that. But this the power of choice. Anyway,
Yeah.
what did it say?
So the paradox of choice. So I
Or the
mean,
paradox of choice.
yeah, the paradox of choice. And I mean, some of the themes. I mean, an example I believe that they gave in the book was like, sometimes when you think you're giving people, like the more options you give folks, the worse, like the less they're going to be able to make a decision. If that makes sense. So
Yeah,
if
no, I
I
get
give you
that.
10 options of a menu in a restaurant, you probably don't like that. Like your brain doesn't like that. It just wants you to give you maybe like four options: an option of
Right.
meat, chicken, fish, and maybe vegetarian food. And you can just pick one, and you're like, okay, I want to
Yeah.
eat beef today. Boom. Rather than you, and I mean, have you gone to restaurants before? And this is not to pick on um, Asian restaurants, but I've been to some Asian, well, maybe not only Asian restaurants. I've been to some Asian restaurants that have a ton of choices of food,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
you opening pages,
Right.
like,
It's like a Bible. It's like chapter 5, fish. It's like what the hell? And
and
poultry and
and so and it's not just
I know
what's
what you mean. Or like the accordion ones where there's like nine, it's like folded 17 times. And so it's like stuff like 30 feet long when you open it up.
yeah, like I remember I'd been to one before, and I
We were
remember
in Shanghai, we went to one. Do you remember? And they had like rabbit on the they had rabbit, snake. I was like, damn.
yeah, I remember thinking like, man, this must be an interesting operational experience here, because if you have that many options, like it means people can come in and order random stuff, right? And to be
Hmm.
able to put that together, like that must be like an impressive operational, operations they're running at the back end where they don't mess people's orders up. I feel like American restaurants, please,
Oh, please
like
get out of
if you give them one of like 15 options, it's over. Like you're gonna mess up your food. So,
here. Oh yeah.
well, but there is this restaurant though. What's the name of that restaurant? It's a chain restaurant. Uh,
Is it Asian
no,
food?
no, it is. Oh, I don't remember the name. It is a
What
popular
what are
American
they like the Cheesecake Factory?
cheesecake factory.
That's just such a typical like cliche American like I
Yes, cheesecake factory. I mean, cheesecake factory has a million things on them. I haven't been to cheesecake factory in probably 10 years.
I haven't been since like George Bush was president, but
Yeah,
I
yeah. I
remember
mean,
I went for prom and that was like we were living it up. Like we thought we were going to like a five-star restaurant. Uh, oh man. But I mean, yeah, they have way too much crap. See, for me, but that's interesting you say that. Like for me, I know what I like, so you can almost take me any restaurant. I will zero in on
mm,
like the few select things that I like. So like that Asian, like the Chinese restaurant in Shanghai, for instance, like I knew I liked, for instance, I like chicken. So let me go to the chicken. I know I like this kind of chicken. So I just have like very specific taste. So I try to like zero in. I ignore most of a Chinese restaurant's menu. Like but I guess what you do is you do sacrifice some variety. Like I have friends who just will eat all different types of things all the time, where I have like very similar tastes that and I'll find it on any menu, you
exactly.
know.
But you like chicken, for instance. Maybe you. I remember when we're in Charlottesville, you used to buy like sesame chicken a lot, like,
Yeah,
and it's
all the
like sweet
time. I
and
mean,
sour.
I
Am
still
I
do.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I
Sesame
don't even
chicken,
know why
yeah.
I remember that.
I've been
That's
obsessed with
random.
sesame chicken since I was 3 years old.
Oh my
It's
God.
I get it probably 99% of the time. If I go to like an American Chinese restaurant, obviously when we were in actual China, I didn't really have sesame chicken, but I got similar things to it. You know what I mean?
Can you imagine
So
like how sesame chicken wasn't a thing in China?
as a kid, I assumed it was, but as I got older, I was doing my research and I was like, oh shit, I gotta find other things. But I will say, like, I've tried other things with Chinese food. I like fish, or whatever, but um, you know, I
Can you
try to
imagine going to Beijing asking, "Sir, I want sesame chicken"?
stay. Look, sesame chicken is good. I don't care what I will defend sesame chicken until I die, even though I think it was invented over here for sure. It's just like fried chicken with like Chinese sauce on it. When you really
And,
break it down, it's just sweet fried chicken with sesame seeds on it.
and then
Kind of
there
a
is like General Joe's chicken.
General Tso's, Tao's. I don't know how to say it. I've never. Sometimes I will get that if they don't have sesame chicken, which is basically just sesame chicken without the sesame seeds.
Boy.
But
Yeah. So I mean, where I was going to kind of like finish what I was is, the whole thing about choice thing. Even to things, I remember we took this class with Horny Man at Darting. It was
oh
one of
man,
those
that's a
psychology.
blast from the past.
Yeah.
I like Ornament.
Yeah.
He's still alive, right?
I think he passed it.
Or did he pass?
Man, I don't want to say that if he's alive. Or maybe he
Yeah,
retired.
he retired. I mean, either way, he was a great professor. So let's see.
Yeah.
Ornament.
Alex Horny Man. Um,
Let's see. Alex Ornament. Let's first put in retires.
I mean,
Yeah,
he has
looks like he
been
retired in 2018.
okay. Woo.
Okay. What if he's listening?
Yo, like that
I'm
is
still alive,
absolutely
motherfuckers.
like
I
we
ain't
should
dead.
actually reach out to him to come on the
We
podcast.
should. He would be fantastic on this podcast. I could
He
listen to
will,
him for a long time, man.
he
I swear
will
we should freaking do that, man.
we should get him to come to this
Yeah,
podcast.
no, he. Oh man, I could listen to him the whole freaking time. But
So
sorry, what was he saying?
so I remember there was this. yeah, like that psychology class. And and I remember how we talk about, happiness is a choice, right?
Hmm.
Do you remember that? Like,
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah. And whether you choose to, there was this person in my class at that time. Did we take that class together, or you were in another section?
I think we took that class together.
Okay.
That was like one of
Yep.
the later classes we took, right? Like
Yeah, it was just
last
one of those
year.
chill classes that you just taking for credit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You just write something at the end. Get.
But quite frankly, it's one of the classes that, I mean, look, I'm talking about it now.
It's
It's
the
one
one
of
of the
the
classes you
classes.
remember.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
one of the classes that I remember stuff on that's actually applied to my life in a meaningful way.
Yeah. No,
So,
that's
which
true.
is which is interesting, right? Like, everybody went on to go take valuations and this nonsensical class.
Which I couldn't tell you a single thing about valuations other than I wasn't good at it and I didn't know what was going on. But anyway,
So he would say things like, this is a choice. Happiness is you can choose to be happy, like how you react to things, how you know. And I remember someone asked, like, well, basically was trying to maybe clarify or challenge him that whether he was trying to belittle like depression, like there are people who are depressed, and I think he tried to distinguish between depression and sadness. Like, yes, when you're depressed, especially when you're clinically depressed, that is more of a clinical thing where you need some sort of expert um, help or whatnot for. But he's just talking more about you have this thing that is just, you have a specific trigger which you know of, that makes you feel a certain way, that makes you feel sad or bad or whatnot, that there is a way for you to make a choice to not feel that way anymore. Which is,
mhm.
does that make sense? And I guess maybe that's different from depression to some degree, where
It's
depression sometimes you may not even know, it may not be one thing. Like,
right. It's just like this overarching
yeah,
feeling or
this exactly,
experience that you have.
exactly.
Yeah. I remember him talking about depression. This might have been the same class, but I remember him saying, people will say they're depressed, and then you
Mhm.
ask them what they're doing, and they're going in their room, turning off all the lights, and playing sad music. Like, he was funny, man.
It was hilarious.
and I
It
and
was,
but that sticks with me though. Like I
yeah,
remember that. That
yeah.
stuck with
That's
me, and I was like, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, I think if you are feeling these depressed feelings, I mean, the first thing you got to do, you got to check. It's like I think I can't remember where I heard this, but it's almost like a car. You have to check and make sure certain things are running first. Like make sure you're drinking enough water. Are you sleeping enough? Um, exercising. Like you take care of those things first, and then if you still have it and you feel that, then you might need to seek medical help. But just make sure you're taking care of yourself first.
exactly. And for me, like, I have found that um, with this pandemic, like, I have made a more conscious choice to actually be happier with a lot of things that's going on, right? Like, I mean, because I will go through bouts of, like, it's like an emotional roller coaster. So
Hmm.
typically, I don't do a lot out of the home, even during pre-pandemic. So, but the few things that I did, played music or would do things here and there, they kind of like, those were the external, input that I got, like, as a
Hmm.
person. So it's like when all of that was taken away, I think it made me even feel in a certain way that I didn't even understand. Um, so an example, well, this may be trivial. So I follow Arsenal. Arsenal is a football club. Remember when
Yeah.
we were out, I used to watch.
Where are they from?
They're
Spain
in
or
England.
England? Oh, okay, that's right.
Yeah, they're in England. So I mean, I watch them, and you know, they are that team that if you're an Arsenal fan, you the roller coaster that you go through for being a fan is indescribable.
Hmm.
Because if you follow a very good team, right, like Barcelona or whatnot, there is an expectation of what you get from them, which they mostly deliver, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And if you follow like a lower ranked team like Burnley, you probably
Never
haven't
even heard
never
of
heard of before. Exactly.
them. They must be like the I don't know,
Like
the Utah
the
Jazz.
pub
I don't
team.
know, like Orlando Magic of soccer.
They're not even the Orlando Magic. They're like,
They're
I
just
don't
like
know.
the I don't even know who they would be, like the Charlotte Hornets, uh,
Exactly. Exactly. Like,
or the Atlanta Hawks. They're terrible. They've never been good.
yeah. So yeah. So if you are a big fan of that team, there is an expectation of what you kind of know that okay, if the Hawks play the Lakers 9 out of 10 times, Lakers is gonna win.
Right, right. Yeah.
That kind of thing. So, but Arsenal is that team where they will play the Lakers, blow the Lakers up, blow,
Hmm.
or play Barcelona, blow them away, and then
Hmm.
go play Burnley, and they will get blown out.
So they just have like random spurts of they're like good and you think they have the potential to win and then they don't when it counts and all this stuff.
That's the thing. That's the exact description. Always potential. They
Yeah.
will always have the potential to win the championship. They are that team that will sometimes go all the way to second. They just need to win 2 more games out of 6, and they will win the championship. And then they will just lose everything in a row.
Yeah, that's
So,
frustrating. That's the worst. You'd rather them just be bad. Like I'm technically a New York Knicks fan. Like technically,
oh
that's how
boy.
I was raised. They're awful. I can't believe I didn't even mention them in my examples of bad teams because I forgot about them. Like, and I'm supposed to be a New York fan. That's how bad they are.
Yeah.
But like I don't even pay attention to them. I pay attention to the Sixers just because I'm in Philly and whatever when I go to Sixers games or whatever. But like the Sixers are more like at least you're explaining Arsenal is now. Like they've had a lot of potential, but they've been underperforming. Like, but what they can do, they're definitely like in the running, so to speak, but they're just not quite there
Yeah.
yet. They
And
are this season, knock on wood, but we'll see. I mean, I don't know.
so 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 if you are their fan, right, you're watching the game, and these games are like 90 minutes long, roller coaster up and down, and you're like palpitations. And then they end up losing. And there is this big, they have the biggest fan groups online. And then, we'll go after that to go watch all of the analysis, people railing, being mad, all of that stuff. And then you pile on up to that. And then what I started doing is I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to let Arsenal spoil my days anymore.
That's a choice.
Exactly. I'm not going to stop watching them, but I have to figure out a way to just enjoy watching the game without regard to the outcome. That's one. Or two, being having the most joy I can derive when they win, and then a feeling of indifference when they lose. You know what
Mm,
I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
so
Right.
so
Yeah.
that and I think I hacked that just by deciding.
Right.
Just by making
Yeah.
it.
It's like putting in the right perspective, how you
Exactly.
think about it and how you frame it, and just trying to keep it. That's life generally, right? Just when if you're doing anything, you just try not to make your ups too high and your lows too low or whatever. Like, and that's I mean, it's definitely way easier said than done, but like it's good
Yeah.
to recognize that you can do that with everything, even if something that seems as trivial as a sports team. But if your heart rate's going up, you're shaving off years of your life because so and so didn't make a goal on a Saturday morning. Like, do you really need that? Like, is that worth it? You know? Yeah, that's no, I think that's a good point. Um, you do have to
Exactly.
figure out how to frame stuff.
Exactly.
Um,
So yeah, and that's basically what I've been doing. And there was a game that they played a couple of weeks ago that to the point where it's now become second nature to some degree. And I was like, wow, they lost this game, but I didn't even feel anything about it. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm just choosing not to. And what happened in that game was they had the players get sent off, so they played with less players in the
mhm,
game, and they lost that game. While everyone lost their mind online, I was just like, oh, they did all right, but they had to get a player sent off to be beaten, and
right.
that was how I just left it. And
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, like that's similar to me with politics and a lot of stuff. Like especially on like social media, I try to frame that stuff differently. Like I used to waste like entire days arguing on Facebook. Like like
like
going at people in
writing
comment, right,
writing
ranting.
treatises.
Right, exactly. Like ignoring actual work and just like writing like essays in comments that no one's gonna read. Like, why? So that you cannot convince a stranger something online? Who cares? Like, I just. But I used to do that like all the time. It would literally, it would piss me off. Like, I would get so angry and in defending my ideas, and I couldn't believe someone else had a difference of opinion. And a lot of times, it was people who maybe I'm not like close friends with, people I just knew, you know, in life. So it wasn't necessarily complete strangers, but it was like Facebook friends or whatever. Like, oh, how could you see that differently? And like now, I just can't even imagine doing that. I'm like, this isn't helpful. This isn't good for my mental space. Like I got to be in a more positive like place. And you know, if you believe something, then just believe it and act accordingly. Other people are going to see things differently, and they'll act accordingly. And you know, it just is what it is. But I think you know, part of that is just trying to mature and see things from you know a different perspective. But I can't be in that negative headspace all the time.
Exactly, the negative. I mean, that is the right framing, the negative headspace, because
Yeah.
yeah, it's it's give me 1 second here. Yeah, it's it's one of those things where you it's hard, man. It's hard. That I would say for sure. It's hard to it's hard to remain positive sometimes, but I think you have to be intentional about it, and it works. Talking about Headspace, do you use that app at all?
I've used it in the past, not recently. I know you've mentioned it before.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe I tried it over the pandemic, like once, I think, before I went to sleep once. And it's like, it wasn't a bad experience. I just didn't continue to do it. Like, you have to make the commitment to do it. I was like, oh, that was interesting. And then just never did it again. Like, that was actually somewhat helpful. And then I just didn't do it again. One thing I try to do little things, like instead of staring at my phone and going on the internet, like I'll try to read before I go to bed or something, as opposed to like just mindlessly uh, browsing the internet. That's a terrible habit I would have. Where like I'd finally get in bed and I finally do all the shit I need to do for work and whatever, and then I have my phone and that's my time to just surf and look like anywhere, like anything that comes to mind. I'll just Google that. Like I wonder, you know, where Lindsay Lohan went to middle school or something. Like just something so random, and then I'll just Google that, and then that will go into something else, and I'll watch this video, and I mean some of that's okay, but like not when I'm trying to go to bed, and it just makes my mind all scattered. So like one thing I try to do now is just like I have to focus on a book, and you know, if anything, at least my mind is looking at one thing and focusing on one thing, and then that also makes me a little more tired, so then I can go to sleep.
Do you guys have like do you have like a TV in your room?
We do, but we don't watch that TV often, to be honest. I tend to go to bed later than Geneva, so if she's asleep, I'll come in and I hardly ever watch unless I'm with Geneva, I don't really watch much TV. I think a lot of my stuff is just looking at my phone, which is basically watching TV. You know,
I know, right? It's
it's
like
not.
they're trying
I'm
to
not
make it
saying
this
I'm
picture.
better. I'm just saying that's how I choose to waste my time. I don't waste my time like in front of a television unless I'm watching something with Geneva. But I'm not going to just be at home just watching TV. Like I just don't do that. It
It's
feels
like
archaic.
I'm watching. I don't watch TV, but I watch my phone
I
24/7.
watch my phone, or sometimes I watch my phone while watching TV, which is just ridiculous. I think I watch a lot of screens, but yeah, I'm not a huge TV person. I mean, I'll watch some stuff. Geneva and I have a couple of shows, and we'll watch like basketball games and stuff. Um, but yeah, I don't like the phone has definitely replaced my just sitting down doing nothing, staring at something. It used to be when I was younger, before I had like a phone, I would just sit down and just watch TV for like I could do it for hours. But now it's right in my hand. So.
Yeah, so I used to um what I do during the day these days is I will actually set time apart to say I am not going to look at screens for like it could be 30 minutes, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like just becoming more intentional about that. Um, what I will there is this app that I have that you can actually use to kind of like block access to your phone for like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but I don't have the courage to do that. But it's also just because I've been disciplined enough to actually follow through with not looking when I set time. So I actually have it
Good.
in my calendar, like daily, like okay,
Like
put your phone
no,
away,
nice.
and it
That's
pops up. So
yeah.
usually it will pop up like maybe when I'm using it, or at some point if I just pick it up, I'm like okay, put it away and be intentional about it.
Got you.
So
Now that's a good idea. So for me, it's more like I recently recently realized I was just not getting the work done I needed to get done because I would just stare at my phone anytime. It just was like a stupid habit where you just, oh, let me just check my phone real quick. And then all of a sudden, like 30 minutes later, you're like, you're on some weird Wikipedia page or looking at a video or like you just, so like it's just right there. I'm like addicted to it. So I work in the basement. So what I would do is I would put my phone in the kitchen and literally keep it all the way up there and then come downstairs and just not have my phone and try to do that as long as possible. It wasn't like a set time, but I would try to do like, there was a time I would do like hours where I just didn't have my phone near me and I just couldn't get to it. Because it really messes up like my productivity. Because they say like if you're doing something and then you focus on something else, like it takes you like 20 minutes to get properly focused again. And every time you're kind of just going off on something else, you're really like messing up your productivity. Um, so yeah, it's funny how like the pandemic has like become like this battle against like screens and social media because you're trapped inside with this stuff and you're trying to battle it so that you can continue to stay a sane, productive
in,
person.
interestingly for me, I feel like I've even used less of social media during this
Hmm.
pandemic. Like I'm
Like the
not,
entire time
yeah,
or as
like
it
I,
evolved. Okay.
but I guess I've used less social media over time.
Hmm.
Like I've used social media less and less over time. So, but that didn't revert back during the pandemic. Like
Yeah.
um, yeah, you would think that because there is just not a lot to do, like I would have, maybe indulge a lot more, but no, like, and it's also that also has been intentional. I mean, I guess going back to intentionality, man. Yeah, it has been kind of like, okay, I'm not going to use social media, and like for instance, I don't have them downloaded on my phone. Like I don't have
Hmm.
Facebook. I actually have it on my phone, but I'm not logged on. Like I just have the app. The like
Hmm.
these days you can just click on it and then you automatically on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'm not logged on. So it's like I have to
Yeah.
enter my username and password.
Right. Yeah. No, I take off the apps because if I get on Facebook, I have to then go to facebook.com and then I have to like type in my username. I mean, it's kind of messed up because I have the face recognition thing. So I can just look at my face once I log on. So I kind of cheat a little bit, but I do have to make that extra step of going to facebook.com if I don't have the actual app. And I take off Instagram. I sometimes, I'll get on Instagram. I'll do it to post stuff for UBI. If I have to do things related to that, I'll get on. But just like my personal life, like I don't get on Instagram, and I can just lose hours on that thing scrolling. And the thing is, have you seen the documentary on Netflix about social media? I'm blanking on the name of it. The Social Experiment, I think is what it was called, relatively recently. It just talks about stuff you probably could already figure out, but just that, all of these companies want our data very badly so they can use it so that they can try to sell us stuff on social media. So all these algorithms on social media are designed for us to be on our phones and in these websites as long as possible so that they can say to advertisers, hey, these people look at this all the time. So, but I guess watching the documentary, just the way they go about it and like the way they, target you with these advertisements. I mean, it's so, they know you so well. And they're literally trying to keep you on there as long as possible. So that helped a little bit where I was just like, man, once you kind of recognize something's going on, you're just like, this is gross. Like, let me not buy into this too much.
And it's funny that you talk about that, because one thing I've noticed from being here is in the EU, is the fact that when you go to any website, you are required, like the laws require the sites to tell you, to make you opt in into you tracking them. And the default is that you are not being tracked. Does that make sense? So,
and this is the EU, you said does this?
Yeah. So, and that's the default. So it's like, if you consent like to being tracked, that's fine. And I just thought it was interesting that in the US, that, I mean, of course, it kind of like started to get annoying to have to like accept being tracked or not being tracked every time you go to a website. But I'm like, I never remember ever having to consent to shit. Like, it's like,
right.
They just put it in some fine print and just say, just the fact that you accidentally log onto this website, you are automatically agreeing to be tracked. I'm like, what kind of agreement is that?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought it was interesting that you have to affirmatively say you want to be tracked. The other thing that they have is the right to be forgotten. So basically, what that means is you have the right to pet. You can pet if you live in Europe. You can petition. There's a process you can go through, going on the website to have your name being removed from appearing in certain search engines. So, for instance, let's assume, in the US, if you get falsely accused of something, that's going to remain on in your record forever. Somebody types something about you, that is going to come on. This guy was accused of X, Y, or Z. I'm talking about false accusation, not instances where whatever was true. So, and that shapes how people will think about you, right? And how, if, for instance, if somebody accused you of, I don't know, of murder, you did not do. But the fact, if I'm hiring you and I just search Manny Brown and it's like Manny Brown was accused, that would make, like, that would plant something in my mind.
Yeah, I'm not hiring Manny Brown. He'd be aight with his murdering ass. He ain't murdering me or this job.
But what you can do is you can actually tell Google, like, hey, I don't want this thing to be.
How do they manage though? Like whether it's true or not? Like that sounds really complicated, because it's like legally it's like, well, what if you're appealing it and all this shit? Like you were.
I mean, so there are two ways to look at it. One is, even if it was true, like, there should be other ways that let's assume it's true that you murdered someone and you spend time and you came back out. Why should that remain online? There's an argument to be had for that. Like, let's say
Hmm.
you committed a crime, you spent the time. Why should
Hmm.
that perpetually be online? Yes, you can go do background check on me when I consent to that, and you find that out that hey, I did X, Y, or Z, and you can make a decision as to whether I'm going to. But why should that be something that perpetually remains online? I think that is a privacy question that we
Yeah,
are
I mean,
not
I
properly.
agree with that. I'm just saying, like, from a practical standpoint, I don't understand how they would keep it off. To me, I guess I just think of the internet as just so huge and so out of my grasp that I just wouldn't even understand how we could control it.
So I mean, and that's the whole thing with information on the internet and how I feel like these companies, these social media companies, and they can do more just in terms of regulating things and misinformation and racist shit and all that stuff. But I think they just choose not to because, and what I've been thinking about lately is, I mean, they will go on, you have people go on Twitter or whatever and bully people and they'll be like, oh, it's free speech or whatnot. But, or they claim like they can do, it's difficult to do. But if you use like copyrighted stuff,
Hmm.
it can get you off like within seconds, like within minutes. Like, like use
Yeah,
copyrighted music, like they flag that. That is technology. They're not just willing to do it.
yeah. I
I
mean,
mean,
that's a
because
good
that,
point. I mean, if we
you
just
know,
started playing like a Lil Romeo song on here right now, Universal would be like, actually, you
exactly,
guys can play it. We don't care about that song. But if you played something else,
exactly. So if we use like copyrighted information, like if we use, I don't know, clips from some movie that, you know,
right.
they don't even need
Yeah.
to, like, it's automatically your site gets reported and automatically you could get put down or suspended. Like it's not even like they're not having a conversation with you, they're not asking you any questions. Like, hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
so the technology, I mean, so the technology is there. They can, and the reason why they do that is because money is involved. Like they think that is important. Like, hey, copyright is property that's worth a lot of money. It's just similar to the way where if you cannot stream like pay-per-view fights on YouTube,
Hmm.
like automatically they're going to cut it out. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. Like, so it's like they okay, it's what they take seriously. Like, hey, that is important. That is money. We're taking money away from us. We going to invest in technology to do that. But you have somebody calling someone the N word all day. Well, there's nothing we can do about that. That is free speech. Give me a fucking break.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if even with the copyright stuff, you're just fighting a ultimately losing battle with the internet and technology. Like, you think about music, and I guess music they figured out streaming, so people have to pay. People do pay for music somewhat, but I don't know with all this stuff. Like, eventually, is it all going to just be free, or something, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Technology's beyond me. I'm not even sure. I'm just a dumb consumer that tries not to consume too much, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't think too much about technology in that sense. I mean, sometimes I think about, like, I'm one of those people that in some ways, I've kind of like given up on just the idea of, you know, I just feel like your information is already out there.
Right.
And,
It's like, look,
and
guys, they all can hear you. I don't know. Like people crying about like having an Alexa, like, oh man, they're listening to your conversations. Like they're listening to your conversations through your phone. You do realize that, right? Like Facebook didn't just magically know you wanted those new Nikes. Like they heard you talking about it, and then you know what I mean. Like it's gone, man. Just part of me is just like give up and just try to live your life and be a good person. But oh geez, fucking winning, you know?
exactly, I mean, that is why, yeah, I mean, I, yeah, like I'm two ways about that. I'm like, okay, there is that part, but then the other part is should we really get that complacent? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I
should
know.
we, like, should I just accept that, like, as just a given, like, and, and I mean, me as an individual, I don't know what I can do about it on a mass scale or on a general level, but are there other things I can continue to do to just not have my information out there? Like, I sometimes think about that, but
Well, I mean, you do stay relatively private, so I mean,
yeah,
as far as individuals go, you don't put a bunch of stuff on there. Um, I mean, some stuff you can't help to have on the internet. I mean, they obviously know certain things about you, but um, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. Like, because part of you is like, well, it's so huge. What are you going to do about it? But I guess the question is, are we willing to um, give up our privacy for the convenience of technology and because there are good things that come from it. There's joy and convenience that comes with it. It's just, and I think it's almost too attractive for us to just be like, we're not going to have our phones. We want our privacy. Like, do we care that much about privacy when you're really talking about, you can communicate with, I mean, the fact that even you and I can communicate right now on this platform, if for whatever reason we're like, let's take away something like that so we can have our privacy. Like, I don't know if you got to weigh that, I don't know.
I mean, exactly. I mean, technology is a double-edged sword. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we've been doing this podcast for how long now? For a couple of months.
Yeah.
In the same country now. We're in different countries, and we're still doing it as if nothing, like nothing
I mean,
changed.
it's nothing. You could have just lied and said you were in Houston,
I know, like,
and I would have been a little suspicious because I didn't see like snow on the ground or whatever. But I wouldn't have known the difference or cared. And
exactly, like it's so there is that aspect of it. But the other aspect is what, and then there's also the aspect, there are downsides with privacy, and also the one you were talking about earlier, where it makes it so difficult to unplug from work. It's like, yes, on the one hand, it is a little more flexible for you if you can work from home remotely. That's all good and dandy. But what about when you cannot unplug because the work just freaking follows you around? Like, it is the most frustrating things. Like I said earlier, I was supposed to be on vacation this past week. No, like starting like Wednesday,
hmm
Thursday, like I was still logging on and just kind of like responding to shit, and it's
yeah,
it's ridiculous. Like,
yeah,
that's when you miss the good old days, right? When people will be like,
right,
"Hey, you go, your computer is at work,
yeah.
you're gone."
The good old days. I know, like February 2020. But no, I think I do have that urge, and I'm sure you have it too, where it's like I want to go somewhere where I don't have any technology. I'm in the middle of the woods somewhere, and just let me stay there for a weekend where I just can't. Maybe I just have like a notepad I can write in or something, like something very basic, maybe some books, but like I don't want the internet. I just want to completely unplug for a couple of days. I have an intense desire to get away from all of this technology because it can feel very distracting, very busy. And I think they have stuff like that. I'm sure it's out there, but I think they have like resorts where you can go where you like there's no technology. And I think I was actually looking into that, like just trying to go somewhere and just not be just unplug completely, which would be a difficult transition. I don't even think it would be easy, but I think it would probably be I imagine transformational.
So for me, like, I don't feel like I'm that addicted to screens to the point where I necessarily feel like I don't want to touch them for a week, or you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
I don't feel like I use them that much. The only time I use them, like, but the times where I use them excessively is for work, and that is what I want to get away from. So even if I say, for instance, if I'm able to not work really to really unplug from work, I wouldn't necessarily sit on my computer all day. Or if I'm sitting on it, to actually be doing things that I like doing, maybe like writing something
Hmm.
or, like something of that nature, not necessarily like loafing around and just, mindless browsing. Or maybe I will watch mindless things to keep me relaxed, something like that. But outside of that, yeah, like yeah, it's just the work piece. Like, just being able to totally unplug from that. Well, maybe my employer is listening to this. Maybe I.
Yeah, you'll definitely be alright.
Well, I think,
I think that's a
yeah,
good stopping point to tell
yeah.
everybody they be alright. This is your first international episode of UBI.
Well, hopefully at some point down the line, it'll be funny if we're able to record um, UBI like with both of us not in the US.
That would be great. I can't wait to not be in the US. That will be
What I would like to discuss in the next episode is actually black set. Like,
Blackset. Yeah, we talked a little bit about that in an earlier episode, but we could dedicate an entire
yeah.
episode to that.
And I think with that episode, like I'm thinking it would be good to have maybe Ayo and Ngozi at the same time because they have thought about that as well. You know what
Getting
I'm
out of
saying?
here. Yeah, yeah,
So I think it would be interesting to have them both at the same time. But anyway,
yeah, for
yeah,
sure. Definitely. Cool. All right, y'all. Well, until next time, y'all be aight.
yeah.